for October 5th, 2021. I'd like to call the meeting order for 7 p.m. First order of business I would like everyone to do is please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Just a couple of quick announcements for everyone. Please note that the Grafton Library reopened for book returns and book hold pickups yesterday, October 4th. Patrons will be notified by email that the materials are ready and will have 1 week from notification date to pick up materials during regular operating hours, which is Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And materials can be returned or picked up in the lobby at the accessible entrance off of Upton Street. The Small Stones Art Festival exhibition will open on October 15th and run through the 24th with many different special events. For a complete list of events, please visit their website at smallstonesfestival.org. The annual Scarecrow Building Contest will be held on November 17th. There will be a pumpkin decorating event on October 23rd from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Holden Farm. Please visit the Grafton Recreation website under the events and activities for details about future and all events. And last but not least, just remind everybody that town meeting is set for October 18th at 2021. It'll start at 7:30 a.m. at the Grafton High School Auditorium. Please note that their parking will be available at the Grafton High School, the Municipal Center, and GCTV parking lot. Please note that check-in for town meeting begins at around 6 p.m. in the lobby. Registration tables for each precinct will be set up. Each registered voter will receive a paddle for use during voting. Printed copies of the warrant article will be available upon entrance. Just to note that seats will be set up to allow for social distancing within the auditorium. Audio, visual, and broadcast and presentations will be on the large format screen on the stage. In addition, microphones will be set up at the front of the auditorium for any questions or comments or debates on any of the articles, and the moderator will be doing a hand count only using the paddles for this meeting. In compliance with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, masks are going to be required for inside of the school building. Seating will be set up to allow for social distancing, so if you do plan on coming, they will accommodate people who need to sit a bit further apart. We hope to see you on October 18th, and if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to the Municipal Center or reach out to the Town Moderator, Don Anderson. Next up here, we're opening up for public comments. Anyone from the public or in the audience or on the Zoom attendees, if they would like to raise their hand, they may do so. I'll open that up for a few minutes and come up here and you can say or give any public comments that you would like. Not seeing any. Okay, first up business. We have a special guest here tonight brought to us by Bob DeToma from Grafton Community Television, our two Grafton High School volunteers. I'd like to invite you on up and just introduce yourselves.
Good evening, everyone. We're here tonight to introduce our two newest GCTV volunteers. They're both high school students. Seated further away from me is Sophia Kling. She's our presenter for Bus Stop Weather, and she is a Grafton High School athlete. And nearest to me is Cadence Tucker. She has volunteered with us to try and learn as much as she can about TV production. She wants to pursue a career in filmmaking. So I told them that there's a lot of drama in this room. So
Seriously?
Sure. I thought it was a great line, right?
And the Academy for Best Comedy goes to
Boom, boom.
Yeah.
We have no idea what you're talking about.
Hi, welcome. How are you doing tonight?
Good.
Good. You want to tell us a little bit about the program? We'll start.
I'm Sophia. I do the Bus Stop Weather, and it's basically just kind of saying the weather for like the Grafton Community Television. We also add birthdays in there just to make it a little more interesting. And sometimes, it's basically just a script, and I can add things to make it more interesting for whoever wants to watch.
So I pretty much just like help out. I will help set up for shoots and get to watch like actual shoots. I did finish editing like a video that I shot with Jack last week, and I do help with some of the other editing too. And pretty much that's it right now. Hopefully I can get to do more like as I start learning more things. So.
Anybody have any questions?
So Caden's got to see Twig get filmed today, so she knows how difficult talent can be.
It was very good.
Oh, there you go.
Nice. Well, Bob, it sounds like you have some help with some of the extensive editing that you need to do on a weekly basis. So,
Well, I haven't turned over the editing process to these two young women, but hopefully in time we'll be able to do that. We're just happy to have them on board. It's all guys down there. I mean, you know, everybody knows that. So it's nice to have these two young women that come in and kind of cheer the place up a little bit. We're happy because Mr. Berger used to say when we were getting ready to build that building that it was important to have it on the campus in order to attract students from the high school, and lo and behold, here we are. So we're hoping that the relationship continues in the future. And of course, our first bus stop weather presenter, Julia Koshavos, she was unable to come in due to the COVID crisis. We tried to schedule one of these many months ago, but she's since moved on to college. So we're hoping that the handshake relationship we have with the students over there will continue.
Great. I have to say, I like the bus stop weather. It's fun. I show my son, and he absolutely adores it. So
How old is your son?
he is 10 years old, so he's a fifth grader. So he's eyeballing that, and he's coming up with all sorts of grand ideas to maybe potentially join your shoot.
Yeah.
Fun.
Well,
Fun. He was telling me about it the other day. So
get them down there as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I know I should. Yeah, absolutely. Well, all right. Well, thank you for coming in tonight. I'm encouraged to see you using the studio, and I'm sure everyone here agrees that the Grafton Public Cable TV Access Studio is one of the greatest assets in this community that we have. It is one of the few state-of-the-art studios that is accessible by the public, and I really appreciate seeing not only our residents using it, but seeing two high school students and yourselves take advantage of that and make it your own. But thank you, and I'm encouraged, and I wish you all the very best. And if there's anything we can do to help you to even spotlight your programming, please let us know.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you and
very
good night.
much. Have a
Thank
Take
you.
care.
thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks for coming in.
All right. So next up, we have scheduled the public hearing for 116 Upton Road for a Chapter 61A hearing. I would ask if the clerk would please read the legal notice before we go into a public hearing.
The Grafton Select Board will conduct a public hearing on October 5th, 2021 at 7 p.m. to consider whether or not to exercise the town's right of first refusal under Mass General Law, Chapter 61A, Section 14, to acquire from Francis M. Noel and Michelle Noel 15.8 acres of land, more or less, as described on the Assessors, Map 76, Parcel 10, situated at 116 Upton Road for a bona fide offer of $500,000. Notice from the seller is on file in the town board and select board town administrator's office. The selectmen's meeting begins at 7 p.m. and will take place in conference room A and via Zoom. The Zoom link will be posted on October 5th, 2021 agenda. Interested citizens are invited to attend this public hearing and to offer written or oral comments. Written comments must be received by noon on Wednesday, September 29th, 2021.
All right, thank you very much. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I move that we open the public hearing on 116 Upton Road.
Second.
Motion made at second. Any discussion to open the public hearing? None. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. I'd like to open the public hearing. For those people who are coming in via Zoom meeting, if you wish to attend and speak at the public hearing, please feel free to use the raise hand function within the Zoom app, and I will admit you to the room. Anybody here from the public that would wish to come up and speak regarding 116 Upton Road? Okay. Not seeing anybody. Any comments from the board on this, Chapter 61A?
Yes, I'll just, it's, we get 61A requests all the time, and, this is $500,000 that we're gonna look at purchasing, or possibly, or maybe not. I'd just like to know, I read the thing from the Board of Assessors, I read the thing from the Conservation Commission. They voted to recommend exercising the right of first refusal, and with no reasons, with nothing, and I wonder what the value of this piece of property is to the town of Grafton.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Hoffman.
So I think there's a lot of potential value for this piece of land. The land trust sent along some input to us, and one of the values of this land, at least part of it, if not all of it, is that it feeds into the Misco Brook watershed, which goes down into Silver Lake, and that goes down into Upton, and so these are sort of the headwaters for a couple of different critical water resources for this region and regions south of us. So that's one of the reasons. Another reason, to me, this is important, as something for us to consider, is that this land is adjacent to a bunch of other conservation land that we own. Now, 140 cuts through between this property and those properties, but on the other side of this, there are some other properties as well. So it's sort of in an area where we already own a fair number of properties that are conserved. And so aside from sort of the water value of this, there are also some important wildlife corridors that go through this in that protected land. So for me at least, I liked that, there was a couple of mentions from land trust and also planning, recommendations for net zero cost options for us. And I would support the board exploring those options. One of them was for us to exercise our right to purchase the land and then carve it into lots, basically sell the building lots so that we could support building on that site and support housing development in the area, but also conserve a part of the land that's less developable, but still would sort of give us the conservation that we want to feed into that watershed and provide those wildlife areas in that part of town. The other one would be to do what we did, and so we did that with Hennessy, for example, down on Adams Road.
Yep.
We basically
Very well aware of that. Yep.
So I think that was a good approach to take there, and we were able to acquire a big chunk of open space and also allow some housing development. So to me, if we can use an approach like that, it's a good way to balance kind of land use priorities in town. So I'd be in favor of potentially pursuing that. The other option is to do what we did down in Pleasant Street. And again, I thought that was a reasonably good approach to take. So I'm gonna stop talking because Evan's got his
I was
hand
gonna say,
up.
if you're all set, I could
Sure,
have
go for
Evan
it.
come in and address that question.
Yeah, I think Matt covered the why pretty well. The same conversation I had with the land trust. I did reach out to the representing attorney this afternoon, and I had a conference call with them and the developer. This is the same developer that was involved in the 59 Pleasant Street transaction.
Oh, good.
So they are willing to have the conversation with us about potentially donating that backland that the land trust and conservation is interested in. And so my recommendation, if the board is interested in pursuing that, would be to leave your public hearing open while we do that negotiation and they explore where those carve-outs would be in conjunction with our conversations with the land trust. And then hopefully we can make this happen without having to spend any money on the property.
If it's okay with the board, did you want me to share the parcel that's in question at 116 Upton Road for the public to see?
Yeah, for the public, yeah.
Sure.
Matt, I think you did a great job explaining that, and I agree that I think we should be actively looking into this, but starting with the donation route first, and then if not, the no net cost second. I don't know how I'd feel if neither of those worked out and we were just on the hook for $500,000. I'd have to think about it a little bit harder, but given the fact that we have those two options to pursue, I'm certainly interested in those.
Yeah. So the problem with 61A is we've got a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got limited funds.
That's right.
So you can use some, CPC money, but, they don't get that much every year and they have other priorities and they've got to balance all their, projects that they have going on and whatnot. we could use town money, but that's a difficult thing with everything else that's going on in our other set of priorities. Yeah, the option where we get the land donated is both doesn't require any upfront money, but also I think is the simplest process for us, right? So we already have that memorandum of agreement that we did we're working with the same developer, so I wholeheartedly agree. I'd rather pursue that approach if we can. So, is everybody on board with that?
Well, I think there's the other option too of, the town taking the whole parcel and then, carving out the buildable lots and selling that and using the proceeds to go towards the purchase price. So very much. So I think there's two options here. I do know you tie up some capital, to your point, on the whole, exercising kind of what we did for the Hennessy property, right? So, I mean, that is the problem with that, because you could be sitting on this for a couple of years before it gets all subdivided, and then putting out a formal bid process, and then getting PNS signs, and then, conveying the property to those new owners, and then for them to develop it. But I do agree that we went down this path with that Pleasant Street property, and I think that if there is something amicable, I would like to see that pursued first before we look at, a costly solution for the town that would put us, on the so-called hook for that, and see where it leads us. But, that's my take on it.
Yeah, and this is the third development I'm aware of with this particular developer. He's obviously been working well with the town, in the first two that I'm aware of, and there may be more. So, I definitely want to be supporting development in town with developers that are willing to partner with the town to try to produce good outcomes.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments?
Well, I just want to say that, reiterate what I said in the beginning. I am not interested in the town spending one dime for a piece of property. If we can work out this deal, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. But we have so many other things that we need to do. And we really, in my opinion, we can't afford to spend $500,000 on a piece of property. Whether we can carve it out, and make lots, municipalities should not be in the real estate business. It really doesn't, usually doesn't work at all. So just looking at this, if we were to take that back piece of property, so there's 7.3 acres, that's the piece of property, correct?
That's the area right there.
So the back piece of property, if we got the back piece of property, it's landlocked, correct?
No, it's right on Upton Road.
It's
No, but if the,
Hold up,
I'm
no.
sorry, if you took out the front of it and this developer from Pleasant Street gave us the
Yep.
back portion of it, it is now landlocked.
It isn't, no. So you can see a driveway going into where the old nail shack was that burned down.
Yeah?
That, nope, that's actually to the house, I think.
The nail shack is here.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah, so that's not landlocked.
Okay, well, the only way that I would be in favor of this is if the donation came through and somebody else purchased this piece of property. But other than that, I am not in favor of spending $500,000 on any piece of property at this time in the town's future. Absolutely not. We have way too many things to spend money on than to buy another piece of property. If we can work out a deal, I'm all in favor of it.
Anyone else have any comments?
Yeah, I have a question for Evan. If we do keep the public hearing open, what's a reasonable amount of time to work out this conversation with the developer to reopen the hearing?
Well, we have 120 days, so.
No, I know how much
Yeah.
time we have. I'm just wondering, so we don't have to wait till the deadline to answer it.
Oh,
Maybe we
okay.
figure it out in a couple weeks. Is it a month?
I think it's probably 60 to 90 days, I guess. They have some work to do on their end as well to understand exactly what they need to be able to carve out of this property, and then we've got some back and forth to do. So in my conversations with the developer, they thought that was reasonable to do. Obviously, you have up until the 120 days to actually pull the trigger on exercising your right. But I think that, probably at the 60-day mark from here, we'll have had enough conversation with the land trust and with the developer to know whether we're going to be able to make this work or, it's going to be dead in the water. I think that'll shake out fairly quickly. But they did tell me that they had some further work to do on the site before they we're able to sit down and say, yes, you can have that piece or that piece or that piece.
So I think I remember hearing that we have until December 24th to make a decision, and so 60. So do we think we can, by the first week of December, possibly have this reopen the hearing again to discuss it?
Yeah, I think you just leave the hearing open. You're not going to
Oh,
close the
not
hearing at
yeah,
all.
whatever the right verbiage
Right.
is.
I think that that's probably a reasonable timeline to shoot for. We'll know, when we get into November if we're not going to hit that. You know what I mean? So I think from our end, it's a reasonable time frame. We also need to be cognizant of the developer's time frame. To I think it was Peter's point, they had worked very well. Either Peter or Matt. I'm sorry. It was Matt. Like I said the first time. They've been working very well with the town. They were very open to the conversation when I called, and we're thankful that the town proactively reached out to give them both the heads up that the town has interest, and then also to try to work a deal. So, I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt and let them run with it a little bit. We start getting close to December and we start getting a little nervous. I think we can certainly pivot, but like I said, I think into November is a reasonable time frame.
Can I just add? Yeah, so I'm optimistic based on this conversation that we can probably work something out. And to Matt's original point, I think you spelled it out really nicely of why this should be a consideration. And I agree that either the net zero cost option or the donation option would be best. And if we're going to move forward with talking about spending $500,000, that's a discussion we'd have to come back and have seriously. So I'm not ready to say yes to that yet, but I am optimistic based on these conversations that we can come to some sort of agreement.
I'd agree with that, and I'd just like to ask Evan, at what point do you think, because I'm not comfortable with the no net cost option unless we have some kind of plan from the town and some vetting to say that this is a feasible approach so that we're not spending $500,000 and then unable to actually recover that money with the lots that we would propose to sell. So I imagine there probably is a little bit of planning and survey type of work that needs to be done in that case to make it a real plan as opposed to just an idea, which I think is what it is now. So I'm just wondering, at what point would we want to engage to do some of that planning, because I wouldn't want to wait until early December.
Right. I think that's still November to me.
Okay.
I think doing it, somewhere around the middle of November. I think I really got the sense that, like I said, 60 to 90 days, but I think we're going to get a sense if we're going to be able to make this happen or not pretty readily. Like I said, it was a really optimistic conversation. Went really well. All the players are known entities, both on the town side and on the developer side. And I think that, we get to mid-November and we don't know what the outcome is going to be yet, I would be surprised.
Okay.
And then, I think then we could make a decision on whether or not to pursue, an appraisal and some site work. Just be cognizant that there's going to be, cost involved with that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just for the public's knowledge, I know, we talked about the Board of Assessors that took action on or about September 7th in a memo directed to the Select Board that's in our meeting packet. In addition to that, there is a memo dated September 28, 2021 from the Camera Conservation Agent in regards to a vote that the Conservation Committee sent a memo about recommending exercising our first right of refusal, and we also received a letter from the Planning Department as well, and from the Planning Board with regards to that property. So anyone who wants to see that can see that in our meeting packet. Does anyone have any questions on any of the memos? Okay. I think at this time, I think it makes sense to continue the public hearing as well. So if there isn't anybody else, anyone from the audience that wish to speak with regards to the subject matter or that is in the Zoom meeting, please use the raise hand function. I'm not seeing anything right now, so I can entertain a motion to continue the public hearing.
So I make a motion, we continue the public hearing on 116 Upton Road, chapter 61A.
Second.
Motion to continue the public hearing. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried unanimous. All right, we'll bring this back to a future date. We'll work with Evan on continuing that public hearing. Thank you. All right, so next up, we have a one-day beer and wine license. Anybody have any questions? This is from Mr. Holden. I don't have any questions. I can entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the one-day beer and wine license for, what was the,
Sunflower Shanty.
Sunflower
for the
Sunflower
dates
Shanty
of
LLC,
October 14, 2021.
for the dates of October 14th, 2021.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried. Next up, we have a refinance of a condominium with affordable housing unit deed restriction. So what they're looking for tonight is a component here to take a vote from the board so they can get a refinance. Does anyone have any questions? We've taken action like this in the past. No? Okay, I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to authorize the town administrator to send a letter of support for refinancing of the affordable unit located at 33 Flint Pond Drive, Unit 60, North Grafton.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried. All right, so next up, we have local rapid recovery plan here. So this is a letter to sign, sent to the state. Planning board sent a similar letter a while ago in support of this program. There was attachment in our packet that Chris McGoldrick had drafted and sent. Does anyone have any questions on this?
I liked the presentation. The recommendations I thought were good, for sure. One stood out to me in particular, but they were all really good recommendations. So
It was a great report.
Yeah,
It
I
really
agree.
was.
can I ask Ray if he'll bring up the business association to EDC again, now that there's possible funding for
Well,
one?
I did bring that up.
No, I know.
Right.
But now that
Now
there
there's
might be money
funding.
for
Yeah,
it.
I'll bring it up again.
Yeah, this proposal seems to kind of jive with a lot of different initiatives in town. When we talk about complete streets, which we have coming up later, trying to connect businesses together with public infrastructure, and I think it was really a great analysis.
Great. Any other questions on the board? Comments? All right, I can entertain a motion.
I make a motion that I move the board vote to authorize the, guess it would be the town administrator to write a letter on the board's behalf indicating their support of the local rapid recovery plan.
Second.
Support.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried unanimous.
Yeah, I thought you were done.
That's okay. You said that second very, very quickly. I know someone.
That was an aggressive seconding.
I only know.
Really excited about it.
I only know one other person who says second like that. You know, I used to be on this board and used to say like. You used to always like before people can finish the last word. You did that.
Sorry, but try not to do that.
Sorry.
It's no, it's great. I was like, I only know one other person did that.
I'll just elbow you if you're.
Colleen, I'll move my motions a little faster.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, like, let's go.
Yeah, please, because she sits over here to the left.
Clearly.
Of me, just saying. Have to get between you two. Okay, we have no resignations tonight. So next up here, we have appointments for the Affordable Housing Trust. And with us tonight, there were 5 individuals who were sent invitations. Ava Fantasia, Brittany Morgan, Franco Datilio, Lakeisha Papotasakias, sorry, Lakeisha, and Stratos Bonos. So first up tonight, we have is Ava Fantasia. Is Ava available or on the Zoom meeting?
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Ava. Good
Hi,
evening. How
Ava.
are you?
Hi, very good, thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Well, it's great to have you. Thank you very much. And so if you just want to give us a few comments about yourself and why you want to serve on the Affordable Housing Trust.
Sure. Resident of Grafton now since 1985, and have a background in banking and also real estate. And I was, as I mentioned, at the last meeting. I'm part of the original Housing Opportunity Partnership, which I realize is different than the trust, but I've always been kind of passionate about that. And I have time. I'm available to serve on this committee. I'm ready to take direction and be tasked with work to move the agenda items forward.
All right, thank you. So I'll just open this up. Any questions from the board for Ava?
So I remember the question we asked last time of all of the candidates were if they had it's Thursday and I can't remember the exact time. Bruce was here for it last time and he signaled to us when they met. And I wanted to ask everybody that and I'm blanking right now.
It's the third Thursday of the month at 7:45.
There you go.
Yep.
So that works for you, Ava?
Sure does, yes.
Right. Any other questions for Ava? So Ava, I appreciate you coming out tonight. The board doesn't have any more questions, and especially your continued interest in serving on this committee. I'm sure you know what's in front of the Affordable Housing Trust and their challenges coming up. And you know, you are aware of some of the plans that they have in place today about 25 Worcester Street and other initiatives that they're seeking?
Yes, and I guess there's some excitement around the other project with GSX, so that's something that would be a great opportunity for the town if we can work that out.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you very much. All right, Ava, thank you. We appreciate you coming
Thank
in
you.
tonight. Yeah.
My pleasure, thank you.
All right, so next up, I want to invite Brittany Morgan. Hi, Brittany, we want to come up, have a seat. Welcome.
Stand or seat?
You can have a seat. Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're seeking to serve on the
Sure.
Affordable Housing Trust?
I'm an architect in Boston, registered architect in Massachusetts. Been practicing for 10 plus years in the industry. Went to school in Boston. So my husband and I bought our first house here a couple years ago, so we wanted to get involved in the community. I have a lot of experience in affordable housing, multifamily residential, working with developers, zoning board appeals, community meetings. So I just would love to get involved in that area, and I have a lot of knowledge to give, so.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for coming back out tonight and your continued interest in serving on the committee. Does anyone have any questions for Brittany?
Same question. Third Thursday of the month at 7:45.
It works.
Wonderful.
I just have some,
Sure.
Brittany, a friend of mine is taking the tests.
Yes.
Yes. How did you like that experience?
It's challenging. I was lucky enough to be in the middle of when they were transitioning from 7 tests to now 6. So I only had to pass 5 because I passed 3 of the old ones and then 2 of the new ones.
Yeah.
It's challenging. Do it before you have kids. It's just schedule them and study 6 weeks before, no
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
It's too much otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just wondering what
Yeah.
you thought of the process. So.
Yeah, if you want to give me their email, I'd definitely reach out. I can.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And just to confirm, those tests were for your professional certification? And
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about 3 to 5 years, depending on how you do it, of apprenticeship, interning, and then you have these registration tests, and they're pretty difficult. The pass rates are very low.
Yeah. Anyone else have any questions for Brittany? I just want to ask the same question before. So you're aware of the pending projects, the property on 25 Worcester Street and the other initiatives. In addition to that, Ava brought up GSX, but you're aware of those initiatives that are going forward, and that's something that you can work with the committee on developing those plans moving forward.
Yep, I'm aware of it.
Okay.
Something I'm interested in, so I always look at that on town websites.
Great. Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any questions for Brittany? No. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming back out tonight.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Stick around, or
Yeah, stick around, sure. Next up, we have Franco. Franco, if you're on, if you want to unmute yourself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Franco DeTillo. I've been a resident of Grafton for over 3 years, and this would be my first foray into public work, but I figured I could apply, potentially apply my previous background as a part owner of my own commercial real estate company, where we owned 3 commercial real estate properties, and went and billboard signs, and went from like 4 to 9 billboard signs, and then 1 commercial real estate property to 3 over, I would say, 11 years, and then sold the company in two different parts before I came here. So I could apply potential contract negotiation skills and critical thinking and problem solving skills what we deal with as it pertains to issues that you guys outlined tonight. So I have a little bit of background exposure in that as well. So outside of that, 7:45 on Thursdays, I can be there or Zoom if needed. Single father, two children, so I'm trying to also be a great example for them on getting involved in the city as well. So
Nice.
hopefully I get to meet everybody face to face as well. So thanks.
Great.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Franco?
He nailed mine.
Okay. Franco, I just have one question. So you understand some of the current projects that the Affordable Housing Trust is facing today and what they've been talking about?
I'm starting to dip my toe in the waters there. So I'd love a kind of debrief and deep dive in it. So like again, that's the people before me sounded like they're really skilled at some of those matters. So where I'd come in is just we help maybe look at things and from a different perspective and help us make good decisions for our community.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for Franco?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming in,
Thanks for
Franco.
coming.
Thanks.
Yeah, appreciate
Thank you.
appreciate your interest in serving on the committee. So next up we have Lakeisha. Hi, Lakeisha. How are you?
Good, and yourself?
Doing really well, thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight and your interest in serving on the Affordable Housing Trust. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to serve on the trust?
Let's see. I've been a resident of Grafton now for probably about 3 going on 4 years. I have 4 kids, but 3 are in Grafton school system. So 1 senior, 1 freshman, 1 8th grader, all who play sports. I was on Together We Can board before it disassembled. I have a background in a lot of different things, but used to be on an affordable housing board in East Long Meadow because I came from the western part of the state, and dealt a lot with it as well with helping out people in the Springfield area as well. Was married to a contractor, so I know a lot about just building and plans and all that great stuff that goes into that. Have a background as a paralegal and doing contracts and negotiations, and also as an auditor. So
Wow.
again, I too just want to really get more involved in the community. I mean, my kids are already really involved, and just to help people be able to live comfortably in this great community that I've come to really love and enjoy.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Lakeisha?
Third Thursday of the month at 7:45. Do you typically have that open?
I always do, actually.
That's awesome.
All right. All right. So any other questions on the board? Lakeisha, I just want to ask, so you're aware of some of the current projects and that the Affordable Housing Trust has in front of it with regards to 25 Worcester Street and working with GSX. Have you been reading up or have immersed yourself in any of those that you can tell us?
Yes. Yeah. 25 Worcester Street. I think that they're all great opportunities for Worcester Street, for Grafton. So yes, I have kind of immersed myself in and try to keep updated on the new events and looking at the prior town meetings or meetings for affordable housing.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for Lakeisha?
No, just thank you.
Thank you very much for your interest in serving, Lakeisha. If you want to just hang out for a few minutes and we'll get through, next up we have Stratos. Bonus, is Stratos here? I think that was the one person who I think mentioned that couldn't attend or didn't respond about the attending.
I thought didn't respond.
Didn't respond, yeah, so we're not sure. Okay. All right, so I guess we'll move on here. So in front of us tonight, we have 5 people who've applied for the Affordable Housing Trust, 4 who are attending here tonight. Does anyone have any questions or discussions that they would like to do before we entertain an appointment?
Just that I'm super happy that we have such quality candidates.
No.
Once again, it's like, how are we going to make this decision? Yeah, thanks for everybody for being willing to come in and yeah, be interested in this. I'm excited for the discussion. I've got a couple I want to kind of highlight. We saw Brittany last time, and I think she's got a really strong skill set. I think her work with the developers and her eye on architecture, and the fact that one of the things that I look at is how long have people been in town, and what their perspectives are, and I try to balance out trying to create as much diversity as possible. And I think Brittany would be a great addition. The other person that really kind of stood out to me was Lakeisha. Obviously, she's worked on a housing board already. She worked out in Long Meadow. It's difficult to create affordable housing in that area as it is here. Again, has already been volunteering in town with Together We Can, and so I think somebody with some experience would definitely be a real asset to that trust. So of the people that came out tonight, they would be the 2 that I'd be most comfortable with, and I think would add the most value.
Any other questions or comments on the board?
I think Brittany would make an excellent member. This is, I have to go along with what Matt said. This is really amazing that we get so many people that want to volunteer and be on these committees. It's just it gives you a good feeling that we're not sitting here advertising a position and then no one shows up.
Right.
And the quality of the candidates that show up are just fantastic. I think that Brittany will bring her experience to that committee in architecture and dealing with, like Matt said, dealing with the developers and all of that. And I think she'd be an excellent candidate.
The questions or comments? Yes, Doreen.
So I'm agreeing with what everyone's saying in terms of the quality of all the candidates. I also just want to point out Ava, who has been here twice, and has a background in banking and real estate, and said, quote, "I'm ready to be tasked with work." So I wrote that down because I thought that was also very important to be able to sit on a board and take action as well. Franco, the fact that you're throwing your hat in the ring at this and you're just willing to serve your community, maybe not having experience with Affordable Housing Trust, but you seem like you're invested and you're a problem solver, and I really appreciate that as well. So as I was taking notes on everybody, I had at our last meeting had said Ed or Brittany, because I had agreed to that. I feel that Brittany, with her skills as an architect and her interest in serving this community, would be a great asset to the Affordable Housing Trust. But then Lakeisha kind of blew it out of the water for me. So I'm just going to say that I really love that she has Affordable Housing Trust experience, and that she also understands how contracting works. And so I'm not going to make a motion because I'm still deliberating in my own mind and want to hear other people's opinions. But I think everybody, I just want to thank you all. And I don't know if there's a wrong choice here. So I guess one question I have, and I don't know if any members of this board knows this, but I would like to know, on the Affordable Housing Trust, is there a gap in a skill set to help us make our decision here? So do we have an architect on Affordable Housing Trust? Do we have a real estate agent or a banker on the Affordable Housing Trust? I think, sort of to Matt's point earlier, I would like to see, a range of experience from people to help make good decisions for the community, and that would help me sort of,
I mean, I can tell you what I know, which is that Mr. Spinney has a fair amount of planning experience
yep,
and some development experience.
yep.
Mr. Prisby certainly has.
Now we have an attorney,
We
which
have an
is what I
attorney,
asked
so
last
that
time.
was,
Yep,
That was actually one of the things that stood out for me for Lakeisha, is that she's a paralegal,
yep,
and that there's definitely going to be a lot of contract review and negotiation and whatnot. So having that skill set, a deep bench, would be good. Let's see, what
do we have an architect?
we do not have an architect.
Okay,
Nope. To my knowledge.
okay.
I can't speak for everybody, but I don't believe we do at this point.
Do we have a real estate agent? Do you know?
I believe Eric Swenson, he's not an agent, but he does invest in real estate.
Okay,
Yeah, I think
Okay.
there's a fair amount of experience. I know, yeah, Mr. Spinney's got a fair amount of,
real
not
estate.
as a realtor, but as in
Sure.
the real estate, because he's
Okay.
bought some commercial properties and,
Okay.
developed and whatnot.
I think I'm gonna say if I had to make my choice, I'm gonna stay with Brittany, who was my first pick last time. I really feel like the value of having an architect on the Affordable Housing Trust would be great. So I think she would be my first choice at this time.
And I just want to add, I want to thank for all of you for coming out tonight. Ava, Brittany, Franco, Lakeisha, for coming out. And Stratos, for your interest. I'm sorry you couldn't make it out here tonight. You're right. I mean, either one of these candidates is be an asset to the committee and into the town of Grafton. I do want to say that I know Ava and Brittany have come in before, and this is their second time around. But I do feel that out of those two, Brittany has a unique skill set, and that is her background in architecture and going in front of people and soliciting input and being able to take that input and bring up conceptual designs and components that I think end up being aesthetically pleasing to the community, or especially to the neighbors. I think that is one thing that is so crucial to the Affordable Housing Trust right now, that I think that in my opinion would be like the one skill set I think out of what everyone brings here tonight would be beneficial. I would really like to see somebody with actual practical real estate experience, but I think at the point when Affordable Housing Trust becomes more of a sustainable component, maybe that's us or the future boards can take that into consideration as one of their criteria. But I think today, like, for me to see some of these plans move along, Brittany would be my top choice as well. But like I said, if someone makes a motion for somebody else, I would support that too.
I just wanted to make a comment that everybody is a standout, and I support what everybody has said tonight, but Lakeisha stood out for me with her affordable housing experience, because we do have a lot of projects going forward, but there might be other services that the trust can be involved in or start providing that she might be able to run parallel with while they're going after all these big projects, and for the same reason everybody else listed. So she was a standout for me.
I guess my question is there a possibility or some avenue that we can look at associate members for affordable housing? That they wouldn't be actual voting trust members, but very much how they do on planning board?
Well, the planning board they have associate members because they need a quorum, for special permits.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's something that we could look into for sure, to like changing their membership, but I think tonight we just have to make a decision.
to
It's
make
so
a
hard.
decision.
Yeah, the last time we went down the associate member route, it burned us pretty bad. So I'm not.
I'm kind of with Colleen on Lakeisha kind of rising to the top for me. That the one thing that I haven't really expressed yet, I think, and just thinking about the skill set that the trust needs, they need good advocates. They need champions, and having somebody that has been on a trust before and kind of, I think that potentially as an advocate, they might have that valuable skill set because they've got the perspective, because they have the experience. They've kind of been through it with some different projects, and so it's really difficult. Yeah. But I'm kind of with Colleen on that one. I'd be advocating for Lakeisha.
Make a motion.
I think that Brittany is the person that we need, and one of the reasons I say that is that affordable housing is not always a popular subject. And it's normally met with opposition. And I think Brittany, being in Boston, and I've been before boards in Boston, and it's very, very difficult. And I think that with her experience as an architect and presenting large projects in Boston and the surrounding area, I think that she has the background that we need to work with the people to make a project move forward and work together on it. That's what I think.
I would agree with that because it seems like a lot of the resistance of affordable housing it comes around design.
Yes,
and how
absolutely.
and how it's going to affect neighborhoods.
Yep.
And to me, even though Lakeisha stood out, I think that the person to help with that would be Brittany because of her professional experience.
So my question is, how much does the trust have say over the design when they work with the developer? The
Good
developer
question.
is going to have, I would say, a pretty heavy hand in that part of it. So I mean, it's a great experience to have, and I think it's something that's why we're struggling right now over this appointment. We have a lot of talented people, but
And we also have a lot of needs
yeah.
that we have on the trust, right? There's a lot of critical skill sets that we have to make
Yeah.
it successful.
And I understand, Colleen, that the developer has some control over design, but they're not local people. And,
No, I guess-
and our local people need to explain to the neighbors, the abutters, the people who are against affordable housing, who in most cases don't understand affordable housing. And I think that we need local people that can explain why the design is like it is, why it should be, or maybe it should change, or whatever it is. And again, with Brittany's experience, I think it's
Right, and Lakeisha could have that experience too, going through these projects before and knowing how to explain that perfectly because she's, probably been a part of some of these projects before to say this is the right way to advocate for this project and this is something you don't want to do.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Can we reopen discussion with some of the candidates? So for me, Lakeisha, having been on an affordable housing board before, it would make a big difference to me to know whether she had been through the development process or not.
Yeah.
Because that's, to me, what we need right now is, because we're in development mode, we're in partnering with developers to try to move the SHI up and get our percentages up.
I would, if you're going to ask Lakeisha though, I would feel more comfortable if everybody got asked that question though.
Yes.
Sure.
That's a fair question. So
Yeah.
what's the
Yeah.
exact question that you want to ask? So we can ask that of everybody.
Well, just, do you have experience with actual affordable housing development?
Okay. Why don't we start with Ava? Ava, you're still with us, right?
I am, yes, I am.
Okay. Did you hear the question from Mr. Upton?
Yes, I did hear it. And my experience, as I mentioned, was on the Housing Opportunity Partnership Committee here in Grafton. And that was back in the 90s, early 90s. And I was involved. We never got a development through. It was so new. And but my part was informing the public in writing through the Grafton News Forum about the work we were doing and about the project that we were hoping for, which was off of Indian Path. And yeah, we had a lot of resistance. There was a lot of pushback from the neighbors. So we did have to field that and participated in hearings at that time with the community. So that would be my experience.
Okay. Thank you. Brittany,
Thank you.
would you like to come up? Thank you for sticking around.
Don't envy your position at the moment.
So yeah, I just want to say you heard the question from Mr. Upton.
I did,
Okay,
yes.
great.
I have a lot of experience with affordable housing. I worked with for-profit developers. I've also worked for nonprofit CDCs and NDCs, so neighborhood developers and community developers. I've worked with them in a partnership where the developer is fronting a lot of the cost of it. I've worked with Boston Housing Authority on an 800 unit property. That was my first project out of school. So dipped my toes in really hard, starting right out of school. But yeah, I've been through the whole process from beginning to end. Community meetings, trying to convince the community members, like, is there enough parking? Is there going to be a rat problem? What's the construction debris going to look like? The noise complaints, all those different things that come up. Also, design does come up a lot at those community meetings, and you like to think that the developer doesn't have a choice, but those people will put up a stink, and you have to adhere to a little bit and have a compromise there. So I do have experience with that, and then my husband is also a project manager at a construction firm, so I understand that side of it as well. But yeah, I have a lot of experience with affordable housing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much, Brittany. Franco, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, Franco, did you hear the question from Mr. Upton earlier today?
I did. I just strictly have commercial real estate experience. No affordable housing.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Lakeisha, are you still with us?
I am.
Lakeisha, welcome back. And did you hear the question from Mr. Upton?
Yes. I mean, I do because the upper downside is that East Longmeadow is very similar. The demographics are very, very similar to Grafton. And the issues that come up are very, very similar in terms of, what kind of people are going to be there, the units, the size, how it is going to be intrusive of the single family homes, getting the developers to understand the community in which they're trying to build in and making sure that it fits the community aesthetically, along with just logistically, and being a mediator of all of that, going between the developers and the different agencies that you have to work with and the planning boards, and knowing different, just different mediation points.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Well, that didn't make it easier.
Well, I was gonna say, Matt, thanks. You made that
Thanks
so
for
much
that.
easier.
I will say this, I really do appreciate the question, and I think that was something that,
Yeah.
I'm glad that you all stuck around. I think it really put things in perspective. It does make it difficult, and I mean, that's why we get paid the big bucks, right, to make these decisions. So, does anyone else have any further comments or questions? Discussion? All right, I can entertain a motion.
I move that the town vote to appoint Brittany Morgan to the Affordable Housing Trust for a term to expire June 30th, 2022.
Wait, would you amend your motion to the board, select board, please? Not the town?
did. Huh?
You said the town in your motion.
I'm sorry, I'm used to,
I do. It's town meeting
The
season
whole
for you.
town has to vote for affordable housing trust now?
okay. Are we done? We're all set now?
We're done.
Okay.
We're done.
Can I second it?
Yeah.
I move that I move that the board vote to appoint Brittany Morgan to the Affordable Housing Trust for a term to expire June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion?
Just want to say, Lakeisha,
Yes.
if there's ever a position open, we're coming after you.
Yes, we are.
Okay. I'm still here. I'm always here.
Any further discussion from the board? Before we take a final vote, I just want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. Ava, Brittany, Franco, and Lakeisha, thank you very much for your interest in serving our community in Grafton. Thank you for going through this process. I know interviews are never easy, but the courage that you all showed tonight to come out here and answer questions in front of the board and for the community to see, I think is very beneficial, seeing this is a very important board that is going to be serving Grafton in the near future in seeking affordable housing. But I want to thank you all for coming out tonight, and at that point, if there isn't any further discussion, I will take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I declare the motion carried unanimous. Thank you very much for coming out. Okay.
Is there an opening on EDC still? Because I feel like Franco would do well on that.
On EDC?
Mm-hmm.
I believe.
One, thank you again. That was great.
Thank you, Franco, for coming
you.
out
Thanks so much,
tonight.
Franco.
Have a good evening. We'll see you.
Good night, Lakeisha. Good night, Ava.
Good night, thank you.
Good night, thank
Congrats,
you.
Brittany. Thank you very much for your interest again.
Good night.
Wait for a letter from
There
us, and then you come down and get sworn in, and I'll make sure that the chair knows of the appointment tonight.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep. All right, moving on to no appointments from the town administrator to new business tonight. So we have one policy reviewing tonight, and this is the complete streets policy. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this?
Was Mr. McGolder going to present on it at all?
Yeah.
Is Mr. McGoldrick here with us tonight? I don't see him on.
He was just a few minutes ago.
Okay, why don't we table
me-
that?
Yeah.
And when he comes back in, we'll come back to that.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Select board reports. Does anyone have anything they would like to report in on? I'll just let everyone know that last week we kicked off the recycling and waste committee. I said no, the waste reduction and recycling committee. We had a quorum last week, and just for the board's knowledge, Doreen has opted to chair that committee for the near future, and there is some available openings on that committee. If people are interested in joining, please reach out to the town's website and look for boards and committee vacancies. But we did kick that off last week.
Thank you for remembering that.
And last but not least, and we'll talk about this under discussion, but I did meet with Finance Committee last week for their hearing with regards to answering questions about 4 of our warrant articles, but I've got 3 of them here that I'll discuss with you later on the discussion about some of their feedback and see what the board would like to do. Does anyone else have any other select board reports that they would like to offer? Colleen?
I met with CPC last week when they were talking about the bylaw change, and then we all saw the memo that they sent, but I was there fielding some of their questions and concerns, and that's it.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, TA reports. Evan?
Yep, here I am. You can hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, my 5-year-old snuck out of bed and she's
I
creeping
saw.
around.
We saw her.
I'm trying to- Did you see
Is she still there? Can we
there was
say
a yeah, now she's on the couch, but she was here with a green pumpkin behind my head a minute ago,
Yes,
which was
saw
fun. So, anyways, back to business. So the fire chief search committee completed their process, as we've already discussed. The assessment center took place on October 1st, and that went very well. It was held here at the Grafton Municipal Center. So all 4 candidates did go through the process. We are meeting tomorrow night with the chief search committee one more time to just kind of go over that and bring a little closure to that committee. I would anticipate that you will have 3 candidates to review, and all of them they did very well. So it'll be another night of tough choices, I think, because they're all very qualified. The library, we've been putting a lot of time in trying to get that completed. As noted before, the library should be open to the public on October 13th. We should have the certificate of occupancy issued this week. We finished phones today, and we did a ton of IT work and moving to get everything ready. And I feel like we're in a really good place, and we'll hit that target of the 13th without an issue. Peter, as you mentioned, town meeting is the 18th at 7:30. The only part I think that I wanted to flesh out is that the warrant has been posted. You can find that in the normal posting locations as well as on the town website. We are working to insert all of the FinCom recommendations. FinCom hearings were last week, and they were able to close them out in 2 days, which I think is great. It was a nice time, and I think we got a lot accomplished. And lastly, I just want to point out that MJ's Market, our first operational cannabis dispensary, opens on the 15th. Their grand opening is on the 15th. So that's pretty exciting as well.
Great, thank you.
That's all I've got.
Thank
So you can start putting some revenue in the projections now.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. Like a good town administrator, I've already spent it, so don't worry about it.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Brassic? All right. Thanks, Evan. Appreciate it. Correspondence. We received a number of correspondence here. I made mention with regards to the public hearing earlier about the memos we received, but does anyone have any questions or comments on any of the correspondence?
Yeah, I think the flags on North Main Street are really in rough shape.
Yeah, I agree.
I know that somebody from the police department put those up and did actually change them out at one point. But I'm not sure who purchased the flags. But if we wanted to replace those flags, I would be more than happy to round up a few people to get that done.
Who was the former lieutenant on the police force?
That was Wayne.
I think it was.
Yeah, it was Wayne.
Yeah.
That did it. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, but some of them are pretty,
Yep.
pretty tattered and torn, and I know very aware of the law. That it needs, if it's up at 24 hours, it needs to have a light. The one that we put at Roney Park has a light, and these were really, I think, originally put up in the Memorial Day portion of the year, and now they've stayed. So I think we really need to make a decision. Are we taking them down, or again, I'll get people to replace them. Somebody buy the flags, we'll replace them. But
In South Grafton, they don't stay up all year. Do they come down in this part of town?
they used to.
But
They
now
used
they
to come
don't.
down
Now
in
they
the
don't.
north end,
Okay.
like Memorial Day. It'd be up for Memorial Day, then they'd come down.
Yeah.
And now they've been up for years.
Oh, that's
So,
a long time.
And again, if the board or Evan or whatever, you want to take them down, I'll put people together to take them down. So,
I think that's very gracious of you. If you want to, I don't have any objection. Just work with the town on making sure it's fun and safe, because you're on the main roads and stuff.
safe.
Yeah, that four-letter word. Starts with an S.
Just
But-
don't tell my wife.
All right. Chad won't know a thing.
Evan has something to add.
Yeah, just go ahead, Evan. I'm sorry. What do you guys add?
We did hear from the PD that they are going to be taken down.
Oh.
We don't have any information about replacement or when they would go back up. So I think we'll reach out to them for some further information, and then Ray, we can help connect those dots.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good. Any other questions on any of the correspondence?
Just on the correspondence we got from BVT, Evan, is that something you'd be interested in? With the cybersecurity training?
Yes, it is something on our radar. I'll have to reach back out to them.
Okay. I just didn't
But-
see a response on that, but I'd encourage us, if you see value in some of those trainings, it's essentially free education for staff, and so I'd be in strong support of that.
Yeah, no, we saw it and flagged it as something we want to participate in. I just got to circle back, as they say.
Perfect.
Very good.
Okay.
And just one more thing. Evan, you can probably answer this. What about the curb on Elizabeth Street? Was that handled, or how do we handle situations like that?
Yeah, so that is in process. We're just waiting for the crew from Lynch to be doing curbing elsewhere, and then they'll shoot over there and do that as well.
Good.
Economy of scale rather than have them just, pay a crew to mobilize, come out and do that one little section. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
well, while we're on Elizabeth Street, just FYI, there was some resident concern about rattling manhole covers after the repaving, and the water and sewer. Is it water or sewer? One of them is going out to rectify that situation. I guess there's some kind of sealer gasket that they put in there to make that stop happening.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Just want to make mention, we received on September 27th, news released from the EPA with regards to North Grafton Railroad propane distribution terminal. And I think that's about it. I know we had a comment about large screen presentations from Mr. Yeomans, and I think that's it. All right. All right. Next up here, so I put on here discussion, just follow-up items on 3 out of the 4 warrant articles that were presented originally on the warrant here, but the first one I want to bring up was the CPC bylaw change, Article 23. So last week I presented in front of Finance Committee about this article, answered some general questions about it, saying like, you know, it's one of the 4 at-large positions that the Select Board appoints, and we wanted to codify, you know, CPC to assure future generations of veterans are represented on that board. Overall, there seemed to be general support of it from Finance Committee. However, a follow-up meeting later that week, there was some concerns or questions about it from Community Preservation, especially at a meeting that they held, and when they attended the Finance Committee meeting, that I believe that there are some things in here that probably need some clarification, I guess, but did anyone have a chance to watch any of those meetings over the past week?
Yeah, I attended them.
Okay. Yeah, you attended.
I attended CPC, and then I attended when CPC came to the public hearing.
Public hearing, yeah. So I'm just going to comment on what Finance Committee said. There was general support about it. They think it's a great idea, but I wanted to know if anyone had any comments or anything follow-up from the other subsequent meetings.
The FinCom support waned a little when CPC came in and shared their perspective on it. And the memo that CPC sent was just saying things like it's a solution without a problem. It really was, it just started as a nice idea. It didn't spawn from a problem. I don't think every good idea has to start with a problem. We were very veteran oriented in our thinking this summer when we were creating the advisory committee. And to me, just watching how CPC operates and having the representation that they have, like a lot of projects come from that representation. So having a seat at the table for a new committee that could potentially be doing projects. If you go on the CPA data bank, there are tons, like pages of veterans projects that have been funded with CPA funds. So it was also concerning to read in the memo when they said that it would fall outside their scope, that they wouldn't be able to fund anything, because that's just not true. But it's not something that I ever pictured getting as contentious as it has. It's not something that I really want to battle with them on if they don't want to include somebody from the Veterans Advisory Committee on the seat. Currently they have 2 veterans on the committee, which is great, but this is more long-term thinking to ensure that somebody from the veterans stays on there. And just to also respond to that, this is going to diminish community participation. It really doesn't. All it diminishes is the select board's direct input as to who we can put on CPC. We give up one of our at-large seats and assign it to this. So, but again, it's just gotten very contentious for what was meant to be a nice collaborative idea.
Yeah. Any questions or comments from the board? All right. So I guess before we move on, I just wanted to bring up, like, does the board feel like we still want to move forward with this at town meeting in regards to some of the feedback that we've received?
I do. I think it's important. I think we agreed that was something that was a priority for the board. I'm also not in battle mode about this. I mean, you know, I do think it's a good idea, and it's not about current membership. It's about, you know, having a seat at the table for a veteran going forward, and I do think that's important. They're an extremely important constituent. There are a ton of projects that involve, you know, Veterans Affairs type of initiatives, and I don't know. Yeah, I was surprised by the feedback, honestly, but I think we should go forward with it and put it before the town.
Okay.
So John Stevens and Brooke Paget also recommended that they would like to see representatives from the school on there, that they would prefer school over this seat. So I don't know if that changes anybody's thought process at all either.
Yeah, Doreen?
Can I chime in? So, at the first meeting when this was brought up, I said my thought was that this is a good idea and it should be explored. And the reason I voted against it at our last meeting was because this is something, I think this is a longer discussion. So not that I'm against bringing it before the town, but I don't feel comfortable with the committee not liking the idea, sending us a letter that it's not an idea. And I feel like it would be better to take a collaborative approach, have more discussion with CPC, and bring it on Maytown meeting. So I'm going to stand by that. It's not, I don't think it needs to be contentious. I think it needs to be a longer discussion. And so that's why I would not want to support it being on October. Because I want to get it right if we're going to do it. And I see the value in having veterans. It seems like the discussion is there's already 2 veterans, and that's not your point. It's long term. They want someone from school committee. I'm just hearing that now. We're going into October town meeting in 2 weeks. There's really not a rush on it since we do appointments in June. Let's wait. Let's have conversations, and let's upgrade the charge to something that is valuable to everybody. That's what I think.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the board? So is, just before, just so I get a, idea, this is something we still want to move forward with in October as presented.
Well, I tend to agree with Doreen that, I want the veterans on there. And I know Jim and somebody else on there is veterans, but, 10 years from now, that if they're not on the board anymore, or 2 years from now, they're not on the board anymore, then that actually goes away because it's an at-large position. So, I would be in favor of waiting until May and working out whatever we have to work out.
So I'm not sure I want to have a split board going at the town meeting on this issue.
No, no.
So I'm with you guys at this, I don't want to be pushing us this particular issue at this town meeting because we don't have to. So I'm happy to wait if, we just want some additional discussion and to vet this out and make sure that we have a clear idea of what it is that we're bringing before the town.
No pun intended.
Wow. All right. I mean, given the fact that, we can take a vote tonight to say that we'll pass over the article. What's the pleasure?
Do we need to even take a vote, or we just
No, we
pass
don't.
over? No.
We don't, but I just want to know that that's something we plan on wanting to do. So we go into town
That's-
meeting knowing that it's our article, so,
That would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
So, pass it over.
okay. All right.
Evan has his hand up too.
Evan, he's telling me no, that I think Chris is back here.
Yeah.
No, I was clarifying, but now it's going to make me look mean. I was just trying to clarify. FinCom did vote to not recommend passage of that ultimately at the end.
Okay.
It doesn't make you
Which-
look mean.
Well, if when I raised my hand at the beginning of the question, it was just clarifying that one little piece. But now you've kind of talked it all out. Now it's like, what's the point?
Okay.
I apologize.
Well, if you're gonna attend every meeting from home, you gotta deal with something.
I guess, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Evan. All right. Real quick, I see that Mr. McGoldrick is back with us here. I would like to move back to new business policy review, complete streets policy. I want to welcome Chris to the meeting. Want to give some overview to the board with regards to this policy.
Yes, thank you for having me tonight. I apologize for not being on earlier. So the complete streets policy before you, I developed that from the guidance documents. The complete streets policy, for those who aren't aware, there's a 3 tiers to this this program for complete streets funding. The first tier is the adoption of complete streets policy. Once that's adopted by the community, by the select board, we send that off to Mass DOT for their review and approval. If it's approved, then we become eligible as a tier 2 community. And that eligibility allows us to apply for up to $38,000 for the development of what's called a prioritization plan. That's going to set out all of the private roads that we have in town. It involves data collection for traffic counts, intersections, as well as interviews with stakeholders, and it's just a planning process to develop projects that fit within portions of approximately $400,000 for construction projects, and looks at the entire road network throughout the community. Once that prioritization plan is developed, that again is submitted to Mass DOT, and if that's approved, we become eligible for up to $400,000 in grant funding to actually implement projects from that prioritization plan that are identified. So we're still a bit of a ways out here. We're at the very, very initial stages with this complete streets policy. In order to be approved and get our tier 2 status, there is a number of scoring criteria that the Mass DOT guidelines implement. This policy reflects much of the model policy language. I apologize. That the guideline document sets out, as well as I looked at a number of communities that I'm aware of that have very strong policies that scored well, and I incorporated some of that language as well as some other language just from my own experience that I felt would help really score highly and be an effective document for this policy. So I'd be happy to hear any feedback to incorporate if the board is amenable with the policy. I would be asking for them to vote to adopt the policy, after which I'll submit it to Mass DOT for its review and approval. Just in terms of timeline for the whole project, the policy, we're not really under any deadlines as of yet. So that's a rolling basis. Once we are adopted as a tier 2 community, those applications are on a rolling basis of April and September. So we are on track for the April deadline if we did get this, and we would then be able to develop our prioritization plan, which would then hit for the tier 3 funding in October 2022 deadline for the application. The implementation of that actual work would then be in the fall of 2022 after October. So we're still a ways out from seeing actual tangible results other than the prioritization plan, but this policy is the first step on that road. And I hope that the board can see the benefits in working towards this path and implementing this policy.
All right, thank you, Chris. Any questions from the board?
No, just a quick comment. Thank you, Chris. So as you're probably aware, Complete Streets was one of the board's goals last year to start to implement. So I thank you for bringing this before us tonight, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
All right, any other questions or comments on the board? Now, I want to thank you, Chris, for putting this in. It's a very detailed, comprehensive plan. I think it addresses a number of our, like I would agree with Doreen, a number of our initiatives from last year and actually the year before that too. Mm-hmm. So going on a couple of years here, but it's great seeing some action on behalf of the town and codifying some of the initiatives here and going after some additional resources to accomplishing some of these components that we feel are important to the community. All right. If there's any other questions or comments from the board, I can take a motion.
I just have one more quick question for Chris, and that is the tier 2, the prioritization phase. Does that solicit public input, or is that done internally, or what's usually the process on that?
Portions of it are the large portion of it is internal. We can certainly do expanded outreach to the public, I would recommend that anyways. But obviously the data collection and much of that will be done in-house. Some of the stakeholder involvement, we'll obviously identify members of the community. In terms of efficiency, one of the things that I do recommend for the when the board considers, we'll be developing a complete streets committee to actually work towards kind of shepherding the prioritization plan and then final implementation stages of the program. What I'd recommend is, you can include members of the public, but largely looking at affected department heads to keep, DPW, health department, all of those types of departments that would be involved in streetscape improvements to be the large membership of that committee. It allows you to meet kind of during regular office hours, and just provides efficiencies in actually getting through the process. So.
Thank you. It's great.
All right. Any other further questions or comments? All right. I can entertain a motion if anyone's ready.
I move the board vote to accept the complete street policy as written.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris, for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Want to go back to Section 9A discussion, Select Board Town Meeting warrant articles. So moving on to the next one here, Town Clerk Charter Change on Article 24. So again, I want to let the board know that I did bring this to FinCom's attention and just outlined what the board's thoughts were on this and moving it forward. There was some questions about just some mechanics on, what would happen if, election and so on and so forth. And I explained that, person is elected and this change goes in, they finish out the term of their election and then it moves over to the appointed position. So we cleared that up and recommend, they know that this is a charter change and that if, if this passes in October, this will end up being on the town meeting ballot in May for the annual town elections for the permanent change. So anyway, just wanted to bring it up to your attention. I didn't know if anyone else, board members, had any other discussions or feedback from anyone that they wanted to bring up about this.
Well, and that FinCom was in support of this as well.
I spoke with Candy and explained, my position on this. And I am still not in favor of this at all. I am not in favor and never will be in favor of possibly taking someone's job away. And she has done a great job, as I said before, in trying times. And this bylaw change or charter change could take her job away. And I will not support it. And I will speak at town meeting against it. And I'll do whatever I have to get this to fail. I really don't want anyone to lose their job.
But right, you can't represent it that way. That's a misrepresentation of
No,
what
it's
this
not.
is. Stop. I let you finish. An election, she could lose her job too. An election is much more a bigger variable than sitting down for an interview for a job that she's had for years.
Absolutely.
I also talked to Candy, and she's neutral on it. She sees the pros for both sides of it. She only knows the election side because that's the only part she's experienced, but she sees pros to having it be appointed as well. So she's being neutral on it when she spoke to me about it.
Right.
But to say that she's going to lose her job if we do this, that's a gross misrepresentation of what this is, and I think that's very unfair to say.
Well,
That's just like saying keeping it in election guarantees her a job. That's not, you can't say that either.
See, the thing is, if it stays in elections, just like anyone on this board, there's no guarantee, and you know that there's no guarantee that you're gonna keep this position.
So
if this passes and she doesn't pass the interview and someone else comes in, she loses her job.
It's the same as an election.
She didn't know that in advance.
It's no different than an election, right? If somebody comes in and she doesn't win the election, she loses
Pauline,
her job.
I am never, ever going to agree to it.
I'm not trying to get you to agree to it, but you can't misrepresent it
And
either.
I'm only one person, and I'm not misrepresenting anything.
Saying she loses her job if we don't do this misrepresents it.
She could lose
She
her
could
job,
lose her job in an election too.
but she knows that. She's taken that chance.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the board on this? Dawn?
I just have one comment, and this is to support the this charge change. I also, we had this discussion last week about how anyone can run for town clerk
Yep.
and not be qualified and win. And if we have an appointment, the person is guaranteed to have the qualifications to be a town clerk, which Candy does, which I think we're all in agreement that we all like our current town clerk. And so, it's, to me, I think it's more risky if you're in an elected position and it could just be a popularity contest and someone could come in and take her job. And again, you know, our role is to think 10 years from now and what's that going to look like? And if we're trying to make good decisions for the future of the town, having an appointed position, in my opinion, is a good idea. And I'm going to support the article, but more importantly, I support it going on the warrant for October because, as Colleen had brought up, the timeline to this is, it can't be May. It has to be immediate.
I wouldn't have a problem with it if Candy said to us, by the way, I'm not gonna run again, and we made the decision to make an appointment at that point. But I'm sorry, I'm not going to support it, and I don't agree with it at all.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so I agree with what Doreen is saying, which I thought deeply, because this was a concern of yours when this first came up. I think her job is a lot more secure as an appointed position than it is as an elected position. Mm-hmm. I understand it's a change, but she's qualified, she's experienced, and she's doing a good job, and that doesn't change. So for me, I don't see any risk for her in this change at all. She is doing a good job. She is qualified. She has a good relationship with the town administrator. She's got lots of experience. She's been embedded in the operations for quite some time. She's a real valuable asset to the town. For those reasons, she'll get appointed. I mean, that's how it's going to go. So,
well, let's put it this way. If Candy says to me that she's okay with this, because she didn't, but if she changes her mind, I'll vote with you guys. But other than that, I'm totally against it, 100%.
I think that puts her in an impossible situation.
Yeah, I think that's an unfair thing to ask of anybody, but I do have a question for Evan, if that's okay. I saw on the town Facebook page you guys were pushing out information about the CPC articles coming out and some of the projects that they're doing. Is there any way we can push out that flow chart where it explains elected versus appointed so people can go in with a better understanding, that same chart that we had when we reviewed it?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, did anyone else have a follow-up question?
Can I just clarify? Colleen, did you send that to me electronically?
Yeah, but it needs to be cleaned up because on the top it has special legislation as a possible.
Okay.
But we don't want to include that because we're not doing that. And then on the bottom it has some more information to either I would just do the chart.
Yep, I just wanted to make sure we had it electronically just so we can.
I'll send it
push that
again
out.
just to be safe. And I did send that to Candy because she
I have
wanted
no
to
doubt.
review that as well. And she reviewed it, called me back with
Yeah,
some additional
yeah.
questions. And her biggest concern was what the genesis of it was this about performance? And it absolutely is not. I couldn't be more clear about that. It was just to protect the position. It's become a far more professional position. It requires a skill set that we can't just risk on an election.
Any other questions or comments? So I'll just state, because everyone else gave their opinion, I'm supporting for this going forward. Hearing the commentary tonight, I think I'm going to personally go and speak to Candy, and my comments with her will be private with me. I'm not going to, share them with the board here. But if she's got questions or concerns about why I want to see this go forward, then I'll answer those directly to her and why I think that this should be a decision that the town ought to consider. if there's something that I haven't considered, or along the lines of, if she gives me reason to believe that this is something else, then I'll deal with that myself and I'll take responsibility for it. But yeah, I want to see this go forward to the town, and I know all of us have our differing opinion, but that's what makes a diverse board. We don't always agree with one another, and I do appreciate everybody treating it that way and taking it in stride, and stating their facts and opinions, and knowing that that's where we stand. But again, healthy debate is a good thing.
Definitely.
So, anyway, if there isn't anything else, I can move on to the town meeting day and time bylaw change, which is Article 19.
I'm not in favor of that. No, I'm just kidding. I'm definitely in favor of that.
Wait a minute, the chair didn't recognize you. You gotta settle down there. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, Ray. So, town meeting day and time bylaw change for Article 19. There was some mention about, do we want to keep it such of a strict of a date? So, with the finance committee, I did say that, there's a prescribed amount of days that we have to have already preset, for this to know when we're opening the warrant, when we're closing the warrant for advertising purposes. And, we felt that having it on a specific day, which is a Saturday in October and in May, just made more sense than leaving the date open to the board then and having to decide, because technically we'd have to decide like months in advance, so that way you can secure the location, logistics, and all that sort of thing. If the day and time is set, it is somewhat easier for people to able to plan ahead. Especially around auditorium usage, facilities usage, planning of schedules. People have lives and so on and so forth. But we did talk about some of the pros and cons of that. So I don't know if any of the board members have any other questions about that proposal. No? Okay.
Evan has his hand up though.
Evan.
Yeah, so I talked a little bit with Mary Loria after that FinCom meeting, and it would be our request, which it seems like you're already there, that it is a set day. It just helps us a lot to be able to work backwards and know what we have to get done and when, and fit it into our schedule when we know what it's going to be, that third Saturday or that third Monday, whatever it winds up being. It's just very helpful. And if the board can move that around, we're afraid that we get our timeline in order and then we change the date and now our timeline's a little bit out of whack. And so we would request that it stays just a set day.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board? Before we move on, just a few minutes ago, while we were talking about the town clerk charter change, the chair of CPC in Historic, John Stevens, had his hand up about wanting to come to the meeting, because he's a chair of CPC. Does anyone have any objection to bringing him in to the meeting and allowing him to ask his question?
No, not at all.
Okay. Hi, John. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for your patience. I did see your hand go up a few moments ago,
Okay.
but I wanted to just give you the opportunity to come in. Welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing all right. Sorry, I was on the road and I couldn't jump in earlier when you guys were talking about CPC. But I just wanted to make sure that from what I heard, I hope, because I was driving, that I said that I wanted somebody from the school committee or education on CPC.
Yeah, you did last week. I got it on tape.
No,
Want me to play it back?
I said, no, well, if I said it, I really misspoke. I said it would be like having somebody on school committee on CPC.
No, you said you'd prefer it.
Okay, I misspoke.
Well,
It makes no sense to have anybody from the school committee on CPC, because CPC, the enabling legislation, does not have funding for strictly educational programming. That's what I was trying to make the analogy of. It would be nice to have somebody on school committee, because it's nice to have a lot of people on a committee, but if there's no available funding for that person, that was my point, then why have them on the committee? If there's something that is suitable or is CPA approved for that committee, whatever it is, then come to us. We're all open. We're all listening. We have meetings twice a year and every month, and that people can come and say, we really would like to see this. Is this CPA funded or fundable? That was my point. I'm sorry if I said it poorly. That's not what I was intending to say at all. It makes no sense to have a reserved designated member for a group that does not have CPA funding from the enabling legislation. That was all the point that I was trying to make.
John, just to clarify, so the board, had a discussion with regards to some of the feedback we heard from CPC and Finance Committee, and there is an agreement that we would motion to pass over Article 23 at the October town meeting at this time.
Okay.
All right.
No, but I just wanted to make sure. I mean, that was my bigger point. Was if I said that, and if it's on tape, Colleen, I'm sorry, I misspoke. That was not my intention at all. It was to make the point that did not make sense.
Thank you
So I'll
for.
have to
Any
learn
other
to speak
questions or
better.
comments from the board?
I just thank you for that clarification, John. This is Doreen.
Okay.
Because I was wondering how a school committee member would fit onto CPC and veterans position wouldn't. So that makes more sense. So thank you for calling in and giving that clarification. I also want to say in my comments that, I have been against putting this on October town meeting. I feel like it's important if we're going to look at, I use the word upgrading a committee charge. I would want collaboration and agreement between CPC and the board, and it sounds like there's ideas and discussions to be had. And so my hope is that perhaps at a future meeting we can maybe talk about potential changes and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense with the whole board. Because I don't feel like there's closure on this discussion yet.
Okay, well, I think we would welcome. I know we would welcome that. That this just kind of caught us between meetings before all this happened, so there wasn't an opportunity. We had a special meeting to discuss it. So I would certainly be willing to sit down, and a lot of it is people not understanding what CPA can do, and most importantly, what it cannot do.
Yep.
Because there's so much that it cannot do, and it may be a great idea. Everybody in town wants it, but we can't use CPA funding to do it. So that's why it's critical that everybody has a good understanding of the act, because it's very limited in what we can do for funding.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the
Okay.
board? No. All right, John, thanks for coming in tonight. Appreciate your time.
Okay, I appreciate you letting me speak.
Yep,
Thank
be
you.
well.
Have a good evening.
All right. Thank you for that. Moving on. So the next thing on our discussion tonight is just kind of review real quick select board agenda on the public input component. So recently, in the past few weeks, there have been people from the public that want to just speak at random parts of our meeting, and it's as much as I want to bring the public in to have public input, it's hard to do it at one of our business part of our discussions in our meetings, especially when the board is having its deliberation. So as a result, we still have the area on the agendas for public comments for people to come in and make a public comment, and they can talk to us directly for a few moments by raising a hand by Zoom, or they can attend our meetings in person. But I think one of the issues is that there was some language within the warrant that I just want to say that within that warrant, within the agenda items that I think probably caused some confusion, and Colleen had pointed that out. So I made just a slight change and removed that. So in other words, raise hand function if you want to come in and comment on anything on our agenda. And some of those things really aren't appropriate for public to come in and raise public comment on. So it kind of felt maybe misleading that every single part of our agenda item could be open to any part of public comment. So as a result, I did remove that component. So just so you're aware of it, but I also just wanted to bring up to ask you all, how do you want to handle public input going forward, especially on items and part of our agenda that we're going through the business part of our meeting? Colleen.
So pre-COVID, public comment was on the agenda, and that was for anything not on the agenda. And it didn't always elicit a response because, we didn't have a heads up about it, but it was just to bring it to the board's attention so that it might make a future agenda item. And then anything on the agenda, if somebody was in person and showed up to the meeting, they almost 99% of the time always let someone speak on the agenda item. I struggle to even remember a time where they didn't. I do feel when we transitioned to Zoom, it was a huge learning curve, and there was different features that just didn't happen in person, where even the chat function, where it felt like we were being shouted at, and a constant stream of thought, where that just doesn't happen in person. And I feel like we pivoted to what we needed to do, but now that we're back in hybrid, it might be time to bring the pendulum back a little bit more, so that when people do see an agenda item and do want to participate, they have a reasonable expectation that they're going to be able to be addressed.
Peter?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I agree with that. The other thing that I remember is when we went to Zoom, we had to eliminate the chat function because that was extremely distracting for our board to have a discussion and deliberate on any topic with constant discussion from the public. And I think a determination was made at that time that we would have our discussion and then open it up to the public if the public wanted to discuss after we have completed our discussion between the five of us. And there was some misunderstanding about how that was going to go, and I think we ended up just having to shut the whole thing down for a while because it got too confusing and people wanted to jump in beforehand, or once we were on to the next agenda item, they wanted to go back to it. So I don't know what we can do to bring more public input back. I think it's needed. I think that it is our responsibility to allow people to chime in to our meetings. But what I don't want is an interruption of this, our discussion and deliberation on important issues. I think it's important that we make a decision, and before we vote on something or after we've had our discussion, people can comment on it if they'd like. Unless, of course, it's someone who has important information for us to talk about beforehand, and usually they're on the agenda if that's the case. So that's my feeling on it. I would like to see it come back. I have heard from a lot of residents that it's frustrating. I like public participation in general, so but I don't want it to disrupt our flow, so to speak.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
So if I was not on the board and I wanted to comment on, I don't know, whatever we talked about tonight, I mean, I'd get on Zoom and raise my hand. I think isn't that the way to do it?
I don't think we've been acknowledging all of the hands. I think that's the point of this conversation, is that we're gonna, how we're gonna handle it going forward, because when we were all remote, it just became.
We were bombarded,
But now that we're hybrid, I think we can start transitioning back to, like Mr. Stevens just now came in, said his piece, and he discussed something that was on the agenda. So it was a reasonable expectation to come in and discuss that.
Well, I also want to weigh in that I know, Mr. Stevens is the chair of another committee, and I know we had just spoken about CPC. I would think that, if other members from other boards want to talk, especially on agenda items, that they would let the chair know ahead of time. So I know to reach out to them and to acknowledge that they're here. Very similar to how I've got a list of people who come in at our meetings for Affordable Housing Trust. I had 5 members. I had Chris McGoldrick, I had Kaylee Kubert, and I had Bob Batoma, Sophie Cadence in here earlier. So, for me to run the meeting and then have random comments, I mean, if we do that, then let's just tell everyone that every single one of our agenda item topics is it's a public free-for-all. Because I don't want to have it be subjective to the chair to acknowledge those people and when not to acknowledge them. So that's the dilemma that I'm in.
Yeah.
So how do I keep this meeting moving forward? Sometimes we could be here all night and, we could be spinning our wheels if, you have 30 or 40 people who want to talk. We have hearings set up specifically just for that item. I'll give you an example. We had one here for the Grafton Upton Railroad. That invited the whole public. Public was more than welcome to come in. several times I saw a lot of people on the attendees list. Please use the raise hand function and I'll promote you to come in and speak. A few people did that. If that's the case, then let me know that, and I will say any one of these topics. Feel free, you can come in and comment on it. But that's the dilemma that I'm running into. Colleen?
So I think a publicly posted agenda does just that. It announces to the residents that this is something you can come in and discuss. A public hearing on the Grafton Upton Railroad is a great example, and we got about 30 attendees to that, but that's a very contentious thing, whereas, you know, a one-day beer and wine license, I don't see anybody showing up for that. I don't see a lot of, you know, 30 people agenda items on a night like tonight. So yeah, you can just leave it open to, if you see something you have a comment on, or, you know, criticism or support for, I think you don't have to be subjective. Come on in. And then the part that you need to be subjective about is behavior. If they're not behaving properly, or if they're going on and on and on, you shut it down.
Go ahead, Matt.
So I think we should, you know, what we had I guess the biggest trouble with early on was the chat feature. That's kind of what got us in trouble, because it's just too easy for residents to be trying to address the board, and then now you have other residents addressing each other, and then, you know, it just didn't work as a mechanism for public input. So we did decide we were going to go with the raise hand. I think that worked really well. I continue to think that works really well. We haven't had that, you know, that same type of difficulty with too many people showing up, for it being too distractive. I do agree with Doreen that we should have our discussions, and then if there's, you know, any commentary, it needs to come after we've already had our discussions. Maybe before we take votes on things, perhaps, but, you know, there's no expectation that the public should be part of our deliberations. But having public input is a very different thing, and I would welcome it, and I think it's important. We've transitioned now to in-person, so things have changed. People can just turn up, and as they have been, we've been recognizing them, bringing them up to the podium or sitting down, and we've welcomed that input. So I see raise hand as a very similar thing. So I think we should try it, see how it goes. On every agenda item, we have our discussions. If somebody's raising their hand, we can bring them in to provide some input and see how it goes.
Let me have a question for you. So let's say it's 3 or 4 agenda topics ago and someone finally raises their hand, because if they're like me, sometimes you can pause a meeting, walk away, go do something for 10 or 15 minutes. We've moved on. Person raises their hand. Say, I want to go back and talk about something you talked about half an hour ago.
No.
So I think that's a situation where you just say that topic's over. We're on to another agenda item. That, you know, our policy is basically, if you've got to be there during the agenda item, during the discussion. You can provide input. Once we've moved on, we've moved on.
Agree.
Does anyone have any objections of asking the public, if they so wish to speak on a certain topic, that they can notify the chair or the TA's office, and we'll have a list of people who we know just to call upon?
Yeah, I just don't want it to be limited to that either, though.
Me neither.
Limited to what?
Well,
People that,
you
hey, I'm
didn't-
going to talk about something on your agenda tonight.
No, I think that's great, but I don't want it to be limited to, I didn't see anybody contact me, Joe Schmo, you didn't get on my list, so I'm not going to recognize you.
All right.
I also think we should encourage the public to write correspondence, because that's another way to get in contact with us. And as you saw, like tonight, we have discussions on correspondence, and also that we're here in person, and coming in is probably your best approach if you're interested in talking in detail about an agenda item. To be here in person with us and come up to the podium is recommended.
Okay.
Has there been a lot of discussion about this? Because I haven't heard any.
Yeah, I've had people reaching out to me
Me too.
about the inability to participate. Yeah, I
I
think
don't-
it's because we had shut it down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't believe that you know, when we're done talking, we're ready to vote. I don't believe public comment comes in at that point. If you have something to say, should be done at the beginning, or right at the beginning, and then we discuss it, and then we vote. Because what's gonna happen is, people are going to know that they're gonna get on the end of this thing. We're all done discussing. Everybody sitting here knows how they're gonna vote. And then people will try to change your mind. And just bring up things. I just think that there's, I'm not overly in favor of public comment. Public hearings are public hearings. You have all the comment in the world. You don't have to allow, the chairman doesn't have to allow anybody to make any comments unless it's a public hearing. And I just think that if there are public comments, it should be done at the beginning and not at the end.
So for example, like, with regards to separate of a public hearing, we talked about the local rapid recovery plan program. That information's been out there. It's in the packet. People have a chance to review it. Peter Carlson comes in and says, hey, I'd like to tell you I'm really in favor of this. Like, what does this mean about certain things and so on and so forth. Those technical questions get asked, but then we get to have our deliberation, our conversation, and then we make a decision after that. So, letting the public talk beforehand, there are some situations where presentations are given from third party that we maybe not get ahead of time. So those presentations, we've had several of those in the past. They eventually make it into our packet at the end of the meeting for meeting minute purposes. But public doesn't have advanced information on that. So I find that part, although I'm intrigued by your proposal, how do you handle those one-off situations? In that case, you're gonna have people come in and talk after the presentation before we have our deliberation?
I don't think we can come up with every scenario.
No, you can't, but I think that if we have people talk at the end, our deliberation is gonna continue after that. Because somebody may say something and you may, hey, I agree with that now I'm starting to think twice about it. I don't know. I think there are times when public comment is really, really good because people may have information that we don't, or an opinion that we don't, or a thought that we don't, and it triggers it in you. And if you do it at the end, after we're all done talking, we don't even get to, we don't get to enjoy that.
I see your point. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I definitely don't want it to get out of hand. Where people come in and bogart the whole 15 minutes of the meeting. No, they shut them off. That's it. You're done. But I do see a useful purpose in it.
Yeah, I'm okay with the general statements. It's the back and forth question thing that I'm sorry. If you want to be on the board, take out your papers, get elected, and you can do this. You can have that privilege. But to have that back and forth question, and as though you're like the sixth unofficial member of the board, I feel that that's what ends up happening in not all situations. In some of those situations, which disenfranchises me as a board member from having that. We are a meeting held in public. We are not a consistent public hearing. But the way that you're mentioning or talking about tonight, that you want to open that up within reason. I mean, you give the chair a lot of flexibility on determining.
Well, we don't want to do that.
What? I know.
Well, I do want to do that. And, I think at the end of the day, Peter, you're running the meeting. And so, I'm in favor of you choosing the agenda items and the people that you want to pull into the meeting based on how our discussion is going. And typically you ask us if it's okay to do so.
Yeah, and as to, public input after us having our discussion, I don't see that as a bad thing. I think, if we want some public input on a topic, I think it's healthy for us to have our discussion and have the public be able to react to it. Having heard the discussion, if we have them sort of discuss beforehand their concerns and whatnot, a lot of those things might be addressed in our discussion. A lot, and so it's I don't know. It's sort of there's pitfalls with both approaches. I hear what you're saying, but
Tonight's appointments were a great example, right? We heard from them, we had our discussion, and we needed to hear from them again. So there is no great prescribed way of saying, oh, no more input, now we talked, so no more input, or we have to talk first, then we'll have input. I think it's just going to be the flow of the meeting. Like 80% of the time, we're going to look out and see this or 3 attendees. You know what I mean? I don't think we're going to be overwhelmed. But if we find ourselves in a situation where it's becoming overwhelming, we revisit, put it on the agenda, and say dial it back again.
Just to define this to the public, there's no one out there.
It's not true. There's 6 people and attendees.
But in the room,
Yeah.
In the room.
Yeah.
you know,
There's crickets.
Fun.
in the
I
room.
used to be over there, but now I'm here. So
Third row back, first seat against the wall.
yeah,
But there are people in the public right now that are watching this on cable access TV or streaming it via a website, or they're coming in on the Zoom meeting right now. So in light of the discussion, I just need to know that if we move forward with this, then it's you leave it up to me to bring these people in, all that sort of thing. But I will say this, I will ask the board if they want to entertain members from the public, and if the majority says no, then I'm going to move on. I'm not
Yeah.
going to make that
Yeah.
decision.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
And I
Yeah,
think
that's
I've done a
fine.
pretty good job of that, with the exception of one person who will remain nameless.
Yeah.
Right? So, I will continue operating in that capacity. I'm not just going to arbitrarily just, allow people in and out without feedback from the board on any item on the agenda.
Sure.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Thanks for making sure I re-brought that up. And last discussion on rescheduling select board goals meeting. I know we moved it for interviews for the fire chief on the 12th. So looking forward here, we have November 9th as our next workshop meeting. I didn't know if that's an ideal date that we want to move to.
I have no problems with November 9th.
That could work.
That sounds good.
Okay.
That was easy.
Okay. All right, we got that. All right. Next up, I've got meeting minutes. September 24th, 2021 and September 28th, 2021.
Will you take a motion?
I will take a motion.
I move the board vote to accept the meeting minutes of September 21 and September 28th, 2021 as presented.
Second.
Motion made second for the 2 sets of minutes. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried unanimous. All right. We don't have approval for prior executive session meeting minutes tonight. We will probably do that. I think, what did we say, Evan, in November-ish?
Next quarter.
Yeah, once a quarter, and since this would only be to approve minutes of a meeting where we approved minutes, we'll just push this to the next quarter.
So January timeframe. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That is all I have. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.